Okay, it's time for Job. Job has 42 chapters, and I did read them all. So, okay. I know this will be several videos long at least, but I don't know yet. We'll see how it gets broken up here. But chapters 1 and 2 just laid a foundation for the whole thing. And again, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but just select things and tell you what's going on with the whole thing. Okay, so chapter 1, and I'll read all of 1 and 2. Okay, so let me move this down a little. There was a man in the land of Uz whose name was Job, and that man was blameless and upright, and one who feared God and shunned evil. So first of all, this is the record here, okay? Like all kinds of things happen. They're saying all kinds of things, but this is the record. Like this is basically what God's word says about Job. Okay, so he was indeed righteous, and he really feared God and he really shunned evil. And I'm going to read a couple of chapters that really display what kind of character he had. And it's one of those things that it's just so beautiful that if you don't fall in love with it, you need to get yourself checked out. You know, what's wrong with me, right? It's beautiful. You'll see. Okay. So it's just great. Okay. So he really was an upright man. That's an understatement, but okay. So, all right. And 7 sons and 3 daughters were born to him. Also, his possessions were 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 yoke of oxen, 500 female donkeys, and a very large household, so that this man was the greatest of all the people of the East. So this means, he was the wealthiest of them, of the East. And there is a place in one of the genealogies, there's a man named Jobab, and they're saying that's him. But anyway, so he had a large amount of, and this was how they were wealthy back then. It was their flocks. That was how they were wealthy. And the household thing is more about like he could hire a lot of people because he needed that to take care of the animals. So it was just a big operation. He was on top of this, and he had 10 kids, and that's what I wanted, by the way. I wanted 10 kids, but okay. Certain things I have in common with him, but anyway. Okay, so he was really, they knew he was, and he wasn't one of the, he was a good one, you'll see. 4. And his sons would go and feast in their houses, each on his appointed day, and would send and invite their 3 sisters to eat and drink with them. So I don't know if this was a birthday or what, or they just planned it out that to separate this so, it would be spread out in a certain way. So it was when the days of feasting had run their course that Job would send and sanctify them, and he would rise early in the morning and offer burnt offerings according to the number of them all. For Job said, "It may be that my sons have sinned and cursed God in their hearts." Thus Job did regularly. So, I mean, he really was conscientious, he cared about these things. Now, here we go. Okay, so this is the backdrop of what's going on in the spiritual realm. And this sheds light on everything that happens. And this is what goes on that we cannot see. So as this goes on, just keep this in mind, okay? Okay, 6. Now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came among them. And the Lord said to Satan, "From where do you come?" Okay, so not that he doesn't know, but they had to have some kind of conversation. So I just want to explain this part about the sons of God. This was a title that was given to angels back then. You'll see it in Genesis, like they were in other places, they're referred to as sons of God. And that's just a name. Okay, it's a totally different thing than Jesus is the Son of God. Okay, he's the only begotten Son of God, and he's part of the Godhead. The angels are not. So there's that difference. And then you have Christians that are children of God. So we're sons and daughters of God, and that's in another different way. So they're different things this applies to. So you just have to see the context of this. So in this case, he's a fallen angel, so he's among them. And yes, I guess they do report, before God. So he had to get in the lineup too. I can just picture that. I mean, I could, if I would find a funny cartoon that has this lineup of, glorious angels, and then this one somewhere hiding in there, pointed tail between his legs. I don't know, it just seems funny to me. But like, oh, nothing inconspicuous here, right? Nothing out of place there. Okay, you gotta laugh about some things. Okay, so anyway, so where do you come? From where do you come? So Satan answered the Lord and said, "From going to and fro on the earth, and from walking back and forth on it." Now that's where, the New Testament says this as well. He roams about looking for whom he may devour on the earth. So this all lines up. Okay, 8. Then the Lord said to Satan, "Have you considered my servant Job, that there is none like him on the earth, a blameless and upright man, one who fears God and shuns evil?" Okay, so God even admitted, look at that. He was the best one on the earth, the most upright man on all the earth. And there wasn't a very huge population at the time like now, but still, this is a great honor to, have this said. So he really was upright. If God says it, then it's true. And, he fears God and shuns evil. So it's a two-sided coin there. You got to do both. So Satan answered the Lord and said, "Does Job fear God for nothing? Have you not made a hedge around him, around his household, and around all that he has on every side? You have blessed the work of his hands, and his possessions have increased in the land. But now stretch out your hand and touch all that he has, and he will surely curse you to your face." And the Lord said to Satan, "Behold, all that he has is in your power. Only do not lay a hand on his person." So Satan went out from the presence of the Lord. Okay. So this was like a little dare, like, okay, if all this is removed, will Job still be the same upright man? will he still fear God? Will he still shun evil? And so Job was put to the test, is what was going on. Okay, and this was going on behind the scenes. Job didn't get, a special little memo that tells him this is happening, right? This is just all of a sudden, this is what Job sees happening, okay? So I did do a video, by the way, on why do the righteous suffer, or why does God allow suffering? And it's in a series called Carrying Your Cross. So if you go to the channel and you go click on the name, and you'll see the videos there. Click on videos, and you'll see this in the lineup in the library section. The whole thing is the library section, and go and look for that series, or you can just type it in where it says, where there's the magnifying glass. Just type that in, why does God allow suffering? And the video should show up. And that really goes into more detail. I include this and more in that lesson, so it explains a lot. But anyway, I don't want to repeat everything, so this is just for the sake of what's in Job right now. Okay, so here we go. Now, I'm going to make this bigger. I don't know if it's my eyes or getting older. Now it's too big. Hold on. Okay. Well, okay, I know. Now I'm going to leave it. I'm just going to, I'll read it anyway. Now there was a day, when his sons and daughters were eating and drinking wine in their oldest brother's house. And a messenger came to Job and said, the oxen were plowing and the donkeys feeding beside them, when the Sabeans raided them and took them away. Indeed, they have killed the servants with the edge of the sword, and I alone have escaped to tell you. Now let me see the Sabeans thing here. 15. It says Sheba. So, someplace. Okay, that's it. Okay. While he was still speaking, another also came and said, the fire of God fell from heaven and burned up the sheep and the servants and consumed them, and I alone have escaped to tell you. While he was still speaking, another also came and said, the Chaldeans formed 3 bands, raided the camels, and took them away, yes, and killed the servants with the edge of the sword. And I alone have escaped to tell you. While he was still speaking, another also came and said, your sons and daughters were eating and drinking wine in their oldest brother's house, and suddenly a great wind came from across the wilderness and struck the 4 corners of the house, and it fell on the young people, and they are dead. And I alone have escaped to tell you. Then Job arose, tore his robe, and shaved his head, and he fell to the ground and worshipped. And he said, so this already, at the loss of all this, he did this as an act of mourning, but, he still was a worshiper of God. And he said, naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked shall I return there. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. In all this, Job did not sin nor charge God with wrong. Okay, so he did pass that test, you have to admit. And this is true. I mean, anything we get in life, at any time, we can lose it. There's no guarantee with anything, no matter how hard you may have worked for it. That's just how it goes. So he at least acknowledged that much and didn't, get upset. So, okay, I'm going back to 2. Yeah, okay. Now we get this. It goes up a level. Okay, so in 2. Again, there was a day, so I don't know how much time passed, but anyway, again, there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan came also among them to present himself before the Lord. And the Lord said to Satan, "From where do you come?" Satan answered the Lord and said, "From going to and fro on the earth, and from walking back and forth on it." Then the Lord said to Satan, "Have you considered my servant Job, that there is none like him on the earth, a blameless and upright man, one who fears God and shuns evil? And still he holds fast to his integrity, although you incited me against him to destroy him without cause." So this was a little rub it in your face moment. But anyway, he passed the test, and he still walks uprightly and all that. And I mean, this is sort of worded funny. I mean, it was really the devil did it and God allowed him to do it. So that it was a little contest thing. That's what that was. Okay, so Satan answered the Lord and said, "Skin for skin. Yes, all that a man has he will give for his life. But stretch out your hand now and touch his bone and his flesh, and he will surely curse you to your face." And the Lord said to Satan, "Behold, he is in your hand, but spare his life." So Satan went out from the presence of the Lord and struck Job with painful boils from the sole of his foot to the crown of his head. And he took for himself a potsherd with which to scrape himself while he sat in the midst of the ashes. Okay, so this is so true. Most people will, that's their price. Like, their livelihood, their life, their health. That's what's threatened when this whole loyalty to God issue is really put to the test. And I think of times in history, I don't want to, again, like I talked about earlier, times in history where people just went along with whatever the thing was coming down, right? Just to preserve their job, their livelihood, their life, their survival. That's all it came down to. And because of that, they would compromise and cave in some of the worst ways, even murder. So this is the acid test right here, this kind of thing. And Job was okay. I mean, he was a lot less wealthy, but he was still okay, like, obviously. But this is why this is another level, is your health and all that. And he was in pain too. So I think of, the other testing of many in the early church days, when the persecution involved a lot of those kinds of methods of inflicting pain, right? That's what was going on. Same thing, okay? And taking the lives. So, anyway, that's why I put all this in that Carry Your Cross series. But okay, so this is what Job does. This is so true. So, again, we have to be so careful never to put these things above our loyalty to God. Okay, in the end, ultimately, that's all that's going to matter. So, I mean, and it's so true. I mean, you come into the world naked and you leave naked. Well, you might be clothed, but that's it. Like, you don't take anything, not even that with you. Your soul just departs your body, and that's it. And then comes the judgment. So, I mean, you can't take anything of it with you, it all stays behind. All right. So, even if you live a very frugal life, but you do the right thing, that's all that's going to matter in the end. So, okay. Then his wife said to him after this, "Do you still hold fast to your integrity? Curse God and die." And a lot of people have said they, didn't have to wonder anymore why the wife wasn't taken away from him, right? I mean, she was one of the tempters who would get him to lose, change his mind in the wrong way here. So anyway, but he said to her, "You speak as one of the foolish women speaks. Shall we indeed accept good from God, and shall we not accept adversity?" In all this, Job did not sin with his lips. Okay, so far he didn't sin, but it's interesting. It seems like outwardly he didn't. Here it says he didn't sin with his lips. So maybe something else was going on deeper inside, because the other one, it didn't say that. It just said he didn't sin. So that's interesting. Okay, now here we go. The friends, the devil didn't spare him this either. I mean, the devil spared him friends, these friends that come, and there's a reason for that. So, okay, now when Job's 3 friends heard of all this adversity that had come upon him, each one came from his own place. Eliphaz, the Temanite, Bildad, the Shuhite, and Zophar, the Naamathite. For they had made an appointment together to come and mourn with him and to comfort him. And when they raised their eyes from afar and did not recognize him, they lifted their voices and wept, and each one tore his robe and sprinkled dust on his head toward heaven. So they sat down with him on the ground 7 days and 7 nights, and no one spoke a word to him, for they saw that his grief was very great. So far, so good. I mean, they're sympathizing here. It's interesting as well. I think it's, the physical marring of his body, which is why they didn't recognize him. And this actually reminds me of, Jesus after the resurrection, where the disciples at first did not recognize him. And I'm sure that's why. So another thing about it is that Job is a type of Christ in this whole thing, because he suffers, yet he's innocent. Okay, so it wasn't a punishment. It was, in this case, it was a testing, but it's a type in that other way. So this may be part of that. And there are other things he says that will come up. I'll go over that as we go. Now, in chapter 3, I'm just going to read verse 1. After this, Job opened his mouth and cursed the day of his birth. Okay, so now he starts to get upset. I don't know, something about these 3 friends coming and mourning with him maybe brings it out of him, because it says down there he didn't sin with his lips. So I think something was starting to go on inside of him, and this kind of brought it out. And now it starts to come out where he starts to get really upset. Okay, so he starts to get upset. And so anyway, it just goes on with what he says, and it's all this kind of thing like, I wish I was never born. This is so bad. my life has turned to blackness. It's all this stuff that's really depressing. So I don't have to read every line of that. You get the idea. I wish I was born dead. He goes on and on and on like that. And so that's how that goes. And then what happens from there is, and I'm just going to scooch along now through the chapters and read select parts so you'll see the deal. So in 4:7-9. So this is Eliphaz. So the whole book goes like this. It's just then one guy replies like Eliphaz, and then maybe Job again, and then let's say Bildad, and then Job again, and then this Zophar, and then Job. It just rotates around, and they're all talking, and it's in this format. Like prophecy looks like this. It's just these lines like poetry, it looks like, So it just goes back and forth like that. But I'm just going to read again the select things that really show what's happening here. So in verse 7, remember now, whoever perished being innocent, or where were the upright ever cut off? Even as I have seen, those who plow iniquity and sow trouble reap the same. By the blast of God they perish, and by the breath of his anger they are consumed. So his answer to Job is basically saying, well, you must have sinned because this looks like a punishment from God. So he doesn't punish for no reason. So you must have some hidden sin, and that's why this is happening. And of course he's wrong. God had even said at the beginning where it said he was blameless. So it wasn't that. And we know what it was. Remember, I said, keep in mind what's going on. So that's what it was. But they don't know that either. But what the three friends end up doing is they make the false assumption of thinking that only bad things happen to bad people and only good things come to good people. So if you're good, you'll get good. And if you're bad, you'll get bad. So if somebody's getting good, they must have been good. And if somebody's getting bad, they must have been bad, is the assumption, the false assumption that they're all making. And so it's wrong because we all know the Bible doesn't say that's how it works. And many times it talks about how the wicked prosper and the righteous are oppressed and all that. And again, that gets into people would say, why? But why? You watch those videos and you'll see why. But it's in the Bible. There are reasons for this, different reasons. This is just one example with Job, why this is happening. But so it isn't that way with how things play out. And it sounds fair, but there's more going on behind the scenes, and that's why it doesn't work out that way, at least not always. So and that's kind of the whole message of the book, and we'll get to that as we go along. But this isn't heaven. It's not that easy right now. So we are going to go through sufferings and tribulations, and there's a reason for that. And these three friends don't understand that. So they constantly, the whole thing cycles around like that, where they come with this and he justifies and defends himself, and they come with an accusation, and it goes back and forth. He defends himself. So I don't want to read through 42 chapters of that, but I'm just going to go over the highlights, So anyway, later, another guy comes on the scene named Elihu, and I'll read some of that. He's not as bad as they are. Okay, and then in 6, it's 29-30. I want to write there. Okay. This is Job, where he's answering. In this part, he says, yield now, let there be no injustice. Yes, concede, my righteousness still stands. Is there injustice on my tongue? Cannot my taste discern the unsavory? So he's defending himself and saying he is indeed righteous and not guilty of sin. Okay, so that's his answer. So again, without reading the whole chapter, that's it in a nutshell. And then chapter 8. Okay, 6 to 7 is the first little part. This is Bildad, that other guy. If you were pure and upright, surely now he would awake for you and prosper your rightful dwelling place. Though your beginning was small, yet your latter end would increase abundantly. So, same thing, and he's wrong too. And the whole thing, also in this book of Job, is it refutes the heresy of the prosperity gospel, the health and wealth gospel, that if you are good, you'll get all that. And it's false. You will not. So it refutes that in its whole entirety. And they are the ones who are deceived by that false thinking of that. Okay, so this is a good book to use for that. Okay, now verse 20. Behold, God will not cast away the blameless, nor will he uphold the evildoers. So it's the same idea of this. Everything, it works out perfectly in the world, right? But it doesn't. And it's not because God isn't just. As I said, there are reasons going on behind the scenes. Things like this, like Job, are happening behind the scenes. So anyway, and good and bad fall upon both the just and the unjust. And there's a reason for this. It's not extreme. It's just sort of, usually, he's an extreme case, but usually it's pretty evenly, distributed. I mean, pretty much everybody in life can say they've suffered bad and they've enjoyed good, whether they were better or worse. I mean, I've seen it. It's happened to me, and I've seen it with everybody around me. So that's just, how it is. And the Bible verifies that. Many Bible verses say that. And there's a reason. Okay. And here, Job was an extreme case. He was blameless, yet he suffered loss of family, wealth, and health. So, prosperity gospel, health and wealth gospel is false. It's heretical, and this book refutes it. And that's it. Now here, next one is all the way over. So this is Job again, and then Job again, and he just goes on like contending with God a lot of the time, sort of, whining the way any of us would whine, like, why did this happen to me? Why did you let this happen? If you have, justice in your ways, why am I suffering this way? And that shouldn't be happening, and what's going on, that seems wrong. This is how he carries on, which is a very human response. I mean, I don't know. I know so many people who have done that. I mean, I've even been in those shoes, like, why do I have to go through this? And, all that stuff. So there's a lot I've been through too, but okay. So, it's a normal human reaction. I mean, it's understandable that that's the reaction. So he has this reaction, okay? And it goes on for many chapters here. Then we have Zophar tells Job to repent, which he does not need to do. Job answers all that. So, it just goes on like this. Then let's see. Eliphaz accuses Job of folly, is this here. So, and these run through many chapters, like one reply will go on for like 3 chapters. Job reproaches his pitiless friends, and he's right in that. So there's that. Job prays for relief. Okay. Oh, 16. I was going to read one here. So 9 through 11. Okay. Oh, a little more this way. He tears me in his wrath and hates me. He gnashes at me with his teeth. My adversary sharpens his gaze on me. Now, I think, they have this incorrectly capitalized. I think this is more like, the adversary, like the devil. That's how that happened, right? The enemy, God wasn't doing this. He was allowing that. It's different, but again, for a reason. So this, anyway, I'll read this first. They gape at me with their mouth. They strike me reproachfully on the cheek. They gather together against me. God has delivered me to the ungodly and turned me over to the hands of the wicked. Okay, so this is interesting because it sounds also like the crucifixion event. That's exactly what happened. Other Bible passages have this as well as happening then. So, like Isaiah 53, so it's an interesting little part that that seems to be coming through here prophetically, and he is a type of Christ. I mentioned that, but and I wonder, who is he talking about? I mean, was it his friends? Later, there's another chapter that explains it could be that, but we'll see. We'll get there. So now, next one here, 17, verse 6. But he has made me a byword of the people, and I have become one in whose face men spit. Same thing again, Isaiah 53 kind of material here. So it's interesting. Throughout this whole thing, his friends kept accusing him of guilt. He must have sinned. It's a secret sin. It wasn't obvious, so it must be that then. And that's why this has to be a punishment from God because of some sin or secret sin, because you couldn't see anything. They kept saying that every single time. Here, Bildad again, the wicked are punished. So it just goes on and on this way with their replies all the time. They're not really much help, right? Okay, now 19. Let's see, we're at 37. Okay, there's some of these chapters I'll make a separate video. 19, 23 to 27. This is kind of interesting. Oh, that my words were written. Oh, that they were inscribed in a book. And here they are, right? He didn't know that would happen. That they were engraved on a rock with an iron pen and lead forever. And here they are. For I know that my Redeemer lives, and he shall stand at last on the earth. And after my skin is destroyed, this I know, that in my flesh I shall see God, whom I shall see for myself, and my eyes shall behold and not another. How my heart yearns within me. So here he is already, this is of resurrection. Here I know that my Redeemer lives, and he does, and he shall stand at last on the earth, and he will. And after my skin is destroyed, this I know, that in my flesh I shall see God. See, so that's speaking of resurrection. And let me read this first. Whom I shall see for myself, and my eyes shall behold and not another. So in his physical body, after it had to be raised again, he will see God. How my heart yearns within me. So this, he's speaking of himself, but it's also prophetically speaking of Jesus after the resurrection. This will, during the resurrection, this would happen. So uh, it points to that as well, prophetically, and he's a type in that way as well. So it's interesting that that's in there. Okay, so now we have Zophar on the wicked man. So, he's same thing with him. And then 21, Job starts talking about the wicked and condemning them. Here, Eliphaz accuses Job of wickedness, same thing, And 23, here, Job proclaims God's righteous judgment. So he kind of goes back and forth a little in these sayings, like he knows God is righteous and just, but then it's like, but why do I have to go through this, Okay, so now it's 10 through 12. But he knows the way that I take. When he has tested me, I shall come forth as gold. My foot has held fast to his steps. I have kept his way and not turned aside. I have not departed from the commandment of his lips. I have treasured the words of his mouth more than my necessary food. So it's another window into Job's character, but this is interesting too. Like at the temptation, where Jesus answers and says, we can't live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. And that's a Bible verse, but it's not this one, but this, echoes of that. So it's interesting that way. It's really similar, as he's a type of Christ. So, okay, 24, here Job is complaining about all the problems in the world, right? Okay, 4. This was interesting. They push the needy off the road. All the poor of the land are forced to hide. And that's exactly what's happening right now. I talked about this before, but anyway, it's just one of many examples he goes over with all the injustice and the violence going on, in the world even then. So, all right. And then these go on, they are false accusations against him, and Job contending for his innocence. And here Job talks about man's frailty and God's majesty. And Job maintains his integrity, his innocence. Okay, now 28. Okay, here. 12 to 19. But where can wisdom be found? And where is the place of understanding? Man does not know its value, nor is it found in the land of the living. The deep says, it is not in me, and the sea says, it is not with me. It cannot be purchased for gold, nor can silver be weighed for its price. It cannot be valued in the gold of Ophir, in precious onyx or sapphire. Neither gold nor crystal can equal it, nor can it be exchanged for jewelry of fine gold. No mention shall be made of coral or quartz, for the price of wisdom is above rubies. The topaz of Ethiopia cannot equal it, nor can it be valued in pure gold. And so this is just a little bit about wisdom, and it's so true. It's just wisdom and, brains in general, understanding is what makes or breaks everything in that way. You can have all the money in the world and make one stupid move and lose it all, right? It's wisdom that guides and navigates your way in those things. So that's so important. And here he says that. So I just wanted to include that. It's pretty good. Okay, and now 28. And to man he said, behold, the fear of the Lord, that is wisdom, and to depart from evil is understanding. Okay, so that's just more of that. Okay, and here, this, I'm going to read all of this in a little while. It's really good. I got to read the whole chapter. It's that good. And now 30 I'll talk about, and 31, yeah, 31 I'll read. That's really good. 32, verse 1. Now this guy shows up, Elihu, and he contradicts Job's friends. So he stands up for Job, but he takes, of course, he's really on the side of God, and sometimes he goes against Job a little too much, but sometimes he's okay. So, okay, so that's the deal with him. Oh, now, this is interesting. 31 verse 1. So these three men ceased answering Job. So he, it went on, and the merry-go-round finally ended. So they ceased answering Job because he was righteous in his own eyes. Okay, so I wanted to mention that he was righteous, and this could be innocent, like he was righteous in his own eyes, or it could mean that, he was sort of like in a self-righteous way, a little bit prideful, a little bit, like I'm just too good to suffer anything, or that kind of thinking, maybe, just who knows. It sounds interesting when it says he was righteous in his own eyes. Oh, let me wait for this noise. So some people are righteous in their own eyes, and they're not righteous, and some are, but being prideful, I'm going to wait a little more. It's coming back. Being prideful is a problem either way. So that could be what's going on, and that could be part of the inward problem that God was dealing with him. Maybe, because I'll say this, when you get anything, the temptation is so great for any kind of arrogance to slip in, and it doesn't matter what it is. It can be wealth, it can be, my wonderful family, it can be success, it can be like academic accolades, it can be your own brain, whatever, your skill at anything in life. And it's so easy, a promotion at work, and we see how all of a sudden people get puffed up, and many times they go so far as to make a fool out of themselves. But it's so dangerous for that arrogance or pride or conceit or whatever you want to call it to slip in there and take a hold of you, and your heart gets corrupted. So that is a serious thing, and that would need to be dealt with. So I don't know, what was going on, but I just wanted to mention that. Okay, now 33, 8 to 18. Just a few more, and then I'll do the next video. Here, this is Elihu contradicting Job. Okay, surely you have spoken in my hearing, and I have heard the sound of your words, saying, I am pure, without transgression. I am innocent, and there is no iniquity in me. Yet he finds occasions against me. He counts me as his enemy. He puts my feet in the stocks. He watches all my paths. Look, in this you are not righteous. I will answer you, for God is greater than man. Why do you contend with him? For he does not give an accounting of any of his words, or ways, I would say, but, and their Bible verses, that his ways are above our ways. So that's all the context of this, but okay. For God may speak in one way or in another, yet man does not perceive it. In a dream, in a vision of the night, when deep sleep falls upon men, while slumbering on their beds, then he opens the ears of men and seals their instruction, in order to turn man from his deed and conceal pride from man. He keeps back his soul from the pit and his life from perishing by the sword. Okay, so this is what's going on behind the scenes. Like, God might be doing something for your own good and you just don't even perceive it. He works and kind of communicates in different ways that we may not know. He's speaking to us, or he's working with us or on our soul, and we're not even aware. That's why this is happening. We're being sculpted like he's the potter and we're the clay. We're being refined like gold, and that's painful. Those things are happening. So God's wisdom is above ours, and these are processes that go on, and we may not be aware of it. So that's his message here in general, and that's absolutely true. So, okay, 2 more short ones. Now, 29 to 30. Okay. Behold, God works all these things, twice, in fact, 3 times with a man, to bring back his soul from the pit, that he may be enlightened with the light of life. So the whole goal seems to be keeping people from going to hell. Okay, that's the pit, all right? And be enlightened with the light of life instead. That's the goal. Okay, now, last one, 34, verse 19. So some of this Elihu says is fine, but when you read it all, you'll see. 19. Yet he is not partial to princes, nor does he regard the rich more than the poor, for they are all the work of his hands. So this is Elihu talking about the ways of God, justifying his ways, and that's absolutely right. This is true, So, okay, that's it for those ones. Now, I'm going to close this video and come back and read a couple of separate chapters, so I'll be right back.